To co, stoimy czy uciekamy?
Do I need a mic? Yes. Probably not. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, let me welcome all of you at this very, very special occasion. We are hosting today Joschka Fisher, who is a very important political figure of international dimension, and who will share with us some of his ideas, maybe some of his doubts about the future of the Eurozone and about the future of Europe. Let me welcome. Today we have very vivid interest from many international representatives here in Warsaw. Let me welcome Her Excellency Ms. Jean Dunn, Ambassador of Australia. Let me welcome His Excellency Alexander Alexeyev, Ambassador of Russia. His Excellency Himanen, Ambassador of Finland. His Excellency Herbert Kraus, Ambassador of Republic of Austria. Ivan Lekovic, Ambassador of Montenegro. And we have in our audience many other distinguished representatives of foreign diplomatic corps. Let me welcome very warmly our students who are given this unique opportunity to listen to a person of the caliber of Mr. Joschka Fisher. And now I'll give the floor very briefly to Professor Kołotko for introduction, and one treat for you. After presentation, we'll have probably 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A session. So get ready. Professor Kołotko, please.
Good afternoon. Welcome. It is just exciting that we are able to host today His Excellency Joschki Fischer. The timing is splendid. We are here. New President of France is having a lunch with 6 former socialist prime ministers, getting ready to take off to Berlin to talk over the dinner tonight with Chancellor of Germany, Mrs. Angela Merkel. But our guest of today, Joschki Fischer, was in a very important period of time where we had different challenges. Vice Chancellor and Foreign First Minister of his great country of Germany. The things changed. Since then, we were working hard to be able to join the European Union, and say 10 years ago, when you were Deputy Chancellor and I was Deputy Prime Minister, I think neither of us, looking forward in the future in 10 years' time, imagined that in the spring of 2012 we will have such a severe crisis at the core, not only at the peripheries of Europe. So Mr. Fischer is the man of state of very many talents. He is not only the man of state of his country, but an intellectualist, and also, what has to be stressed here at Koźmińskiej University, a business consultant, an independent one, but very knowledgeable about economics and politics. This is how we have this title: Euro crisis, financial or political crisis. We are really at a very interesting moment of time. The situation is very dynamic, and if our lecture did take place a week ago, I think there would be a couple of different questions than if it would happen in a week time, because the things change. But today we have a chance to discuss in a professional way the challenges we face in our European Union and in the Eurozone, looking forward towards the future. Mr. Fischer, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. When I was invited, and thank you for inviting me, it's a great pleasure to be here in the beautiful city of Warsaw and to address the very important issue of the Euro crisis to the students of the business school here. But I didn't expect the ambassadors, so I have to be careful. The European Union, and let me speak mostly to the young students, is a strange animal. Many governments outside of Europe don't understand the nature of this animal. What is it all about? Is it a sovereign entity? Is it a cooperation of sovereign states? Is it an economic entertainment, political entertainment? What's all about? Let me start in looking back in the history. The question is whether the present crisis, which seems to be the most serious one in the history of the European Union, is a financial one or a political one. Obviously, it's a financial crisis. It has a financial dimension. You read the newspapers day by day, you will understand that very easily. And in the center of the storm, it's not the European Union, it's the currency union, the Eurozone, the Euro group. But before going more into analytical depth about that dimension of the crisis, let me remind you that we are talking about a global financial crisis. It all started in the fall of September, and if you want to divide our times, you can divide it in before Lehman and after Lehman. It happened This had consequences for the world economy, for China, for Japan, the United States, for the members of the EU, for the UK. Well, we are talking about a global financial crisis. And it started as a private debt crisis, obviously. The system froze, has to be put on life support, artificial life support, once Lehman Brothers collapsed. And this was also the explosion of, or the end of the explosion of a bubble, of a huge bubble, of a super bubble. And after the system was put on artificial life support, the governments reacted. And let me stress, ladies and gentlemen, that the dimension of this financial crisis, of the private debt crisis, and the consequences of a frozen global financial system was as big as the crisis in 1929, or maybe even bigger. But this time, this was not the post-First World War period. This was a different time. And central banks, the governments, the finance ministries knew how to act. So they fueled the frozen system, they de-blocked the frozen system with a lot of taxpayers' money, huge amount of taxpayers' money. The consequence of that was that the next round of the crisis was seen not any longer as a private debt crisis, but as a public debt crisis. For example, Spain and Ireland had a better public debt ratio than Germany before the crisis. It should be forgotten. Greece, a different situation. But especially Spain and Ireland had a much better public debt ratio than Germany. But with the infusion of these, I don't know, hundreds of billions or even trillions globally of taxpayers' money to save the banks and to de-block the frozen global financial system, this crisis turned into a public debt crisis. Now, the consequence of a public debt crisis was obvious, that reducing the public debt will be the third step. We have entered the third step, the so-called austerity period. And the consequence of the austerity period is predictable. We are very close to entering the next stage, will be we have to create growth. Fourth step. And I predict that the fifth step, the consequence of growth, once growth will be pushed over, inflation will be the next challenge. So what we see is a typical situation of a very serious disease which has to be cured by a medicine which is not undangerous. So timing and the dose is a real issue. There are, with different doctors, they have different strategies and different meanings. Now, if you have an heart attack and listening, if you are capable to do that, the three doctors, one says we have to do A, the second says B, the third C, you won't feel very comfortable. And that's the situation in the present stage of affairs. So we are in a global financial crisis. But why is the Eurozone, not the EU, the Eurozone in the center of this global financial crisis? And there, ladies and gentlemen, the answer lies not in finance or in the economy. I doubt, without going into the details, that the Euro or the UK or Japan. If you look to the situation, for example, in the United States, you will see states and cities, some of them are in good shape, others in terrible shape. I wouldn't say as bad as Greece, but some of them very close to that. But the impact for the U.S. economic system and political system is very different. And the answer to that is you will not find in a financial or economic sector. So my thesis, my core thesis, is that the crisis of the Eurozone has a very important financial impact, but in its core is a political crisis. I will try to explain it to you, and then try to draw the consequences. Why was the European Union formed? The European Economic Union. Were there economic reasons? Yes. Were they very powerful? No. Were there political reasons? Definitely yes. Were they very powerful? Yes. And what were the reasons? It all started with the First World War. 30 years of self-destruction. Unfortunately, my country is the center of this process of self-destruction. It was a new 30 years war. At the end of this war, Germany has almost destroyed itself, not only in a physical way, but also in a moral way, committed terrible crimes, especially here in your country, Poland. And this was an almost complete defeat, not only in a physical way, but also moral. Europe was divided between the Soviet Union and the Western Allies. Cold War started. And in the West, there was the idea that the old European system, which emerged out of the ruins of the first 30 years war, the system of the slavery, is not working any longer under modern conditions. So the basic idea, pushed forward, by the way, not only by great European statesmen, French, Schuman and Monet, but also by two American administrations, Truman and Eisenhower, was to create in Western Europe a new political system. And the genius of the idea was, first of all, to use the strategic economic interests to build this new system. And secondly, the new methodology. The economy was one of the driving forces for war in Europe, fighting about strategic influence, interest, resources. So their idea was, let's integrate the economy. This was the basic driver for the new European system. So the economy was in the center, but the reason was political. It was not pressured out of the logic of economic competition. And the mythology was, let's do what we can now, and let's do the next generation, the next steps, if they are needed and if they are possible. So an incremental approach. But we find that EU, the idea of the EU, is a political idea. It's not about the economy. And the real reason was to integrate, especially France and Germany and all their neighbors, that war was not any longer an option. And integration means pulling off sovereignty. And beginning very very careful. Integrating the strategic interests in economic interests, steel and coal at that time. Creating a common market. So you are trading with each other and not fighting with each other. Creating common institutions so that in the future you will negotiate and not fight against each other. The common agricultural market. These were the drivers for political purposes of integration. It was a success story. And looking to your country today, it's a fantastic success story. The European Union, together with the security guarantee of the United States, for West Europe and now for the whole of Europe, were the key elements for peace and stability. And look to your own country. I remember the debates before Poland decided to join the European Union. What the concerns were. I will never forget, it was the Germans will come back, this time not with the tanks, but with the checkbook and buy a sacred Polish soil. And in Germany we thought, we will be flooded by cheap Polish labor, and we will lose our jobs. Now, if I look into the border, what will we see in the northwest or the northeast of Germany? Polish citizens are crossing the border without control and buying property in Germany, sacred German soil. And German workers are going for jobs in Poland today. They're just the opposite of that. Poland is a wonderful success story. They are not only success stories, but Poland is a wonderful success story, some of the others, which demonstrates how the EU is really working. The influx of money in the common agricultural market, infrastructure, financing, and so on. The modernization effect of the EU, it's a fascinating entity. On the other side, we are still far ahead from real integration. Coming back to the present financial crisis, what we see now is that the EU, the large, big EU with 27, was hit very severely. When the wall came down in 1989, everybody understood that this will be the moment that Germany will be reunited. The US understood it immediately. Some others had problems. Understandable one. But in the end, the idea was Germany will be reunited. And to preserve the success story of European integration, Europe has to move ahead with this integration and form the currency here. It was all about deepening of the integration on the background of German unification. You shouldn't forget. This was the real reason. Was there a financial need? No. We had a financial system. And let me shortly explain that. The Deutschmark was the regional currency, the regional reserve currency. And the others were more or less firmly connected to that regional currency. Now, the Deutschmark was under German law, supervised by the German Bundesbank. And it worked. But with a reunified Germany, in a reunified Europe, the idea was that we have to integrate because it might be create problems if we continue with the old system under the new conditions. Again, political reasons. So the euro was formed by political reasons. And I think that's a very important point to understand when we talk about the consequences. So please don't forget that element of my art. The euro worked well. But I think the Maastricht construction had a major weakness. Typical German weakness. Germans believe in principles. So if you have to find a principle, everything is fine. But unfortunately, the reality, is developing in a different way. Principles are fine as long as the reality is not moving in a different direction. And Germany was in a complicated situation. Reunification was just quite a challenge for my country. We were at the end of growth. Wages were going down, pensions were going down. So Germany had to struggle very hard. Others were celebrating the party. Germany had to work very hard to deal with the financial, social, and economic consequences of unification. And in the next step of the EU enlargement, which was in the interest of everyone. In this serious situation, even Germany had to break the rules of Maastricht. And it happened in the direct connection with the beginning of our reform policy, which made the turnaround. Would I do it again? Yes. Why? Because we needed some air to breathe. We were moving ahead with a huge reform program, our welfare state, our labor market, and so on. And everybody agrees today in Germany that this was a huge success story and contributed to the re-emergence of the German economy today. But, of course, it was not according to the rules. Others acted in the same way. And the crisis then made quite clear that a principle-based system, a principle-based currency system, is not reliable under the stress of such a huge crisis. Because governments will always act according to their immediate interests and not to agree principles which the House is set in fire. I think that the big mistake of the austerity compact, or however you will call it, is that it's still sticking to the idea that principles must be implemented. And if not, now this is the new promise. The European Court should be appealed. And then there should be fines put on governments. But a government which is under financial stress or at the brink of a huge financial crisis, then to punish with fines makes absolutely no sense. Because you will accelerate the crisis and not reduce the crisis and contribute to a more positive behavior. That's my experience. So we are in the present situation, we are facing in the present situation the challenge how to survive as a currency. Because this is a major challenge for Europe. The contradictions in the Eurozone, economic and financial contradictions in the Eurozone, are almost too big to keep the Eurozone together. It's still a currency with a central bank, while we don't have a common fiscal policy. We don't have a common treasury. We don't have a common government. It's still in the framework, it happens in the framework of a confederation. And for our American friends here in the room, the EU is presently in a similar crisis as the US was in the 18th century after the successful war of independence against the British Crown, but before the Constitution, Philadelphia Constitution. And at that time, it was the genius of Alexander Hamilton who pushed the young United States forward from a confederation into a confederation. But the reason was exactly the same. The confederational framework for the young United States did not work. And the US was at that time at the brink of disintegration, and this would have led to the failure of the founding of the United States. We shouldn't forget that. And consequently, this shortcoming was healed in the constitutional process in the Philadelphia Constitution. By the way, Switzerland was in a similar situation in 1847, the so-called Bundesrepublik, where the inner cantons wanted to preserve the confederation, and the cities and the city-based bigger cantons were fighting for the centralization of certain centralization of power. That's exactly the situation we face now in the European Union. Europe is based on solidarity. But solidarity is on the other side not endless. You can't have a situation where some will pay taxes, others will not pay taxes. You can't have a situation where retirement will start when 60 or less than 60, and others will do that with 67. You can't have different budgetary policies. So all this, what is called the fiscal union, is now, this crisis, urgently missing. It was not a problem as long as plenty of capital around and finance was not an issue. I think it was Warren Buffett who said, only when the tide is going on, we'll see who is swimming naked. Now we see. That's the situation now. But the crisis of the euro is in the center of the financial crisis because we urgently lack the political framework to deal with this crisis. And it won't be easy to create that framework. Well, let me be quiet or maybe brutal. If the Eurozone will start to disintegrate, the European project will be dead. The common market will be the next victim. And the whole European project will unravel. Because then, if the Euro group will fall apart, the spirit of the European project will disappear. And with the spirit of the European project, the interest will continue. Maybe even the framework, the legal framework will continue. But it will be more or less an empty shell. The European idea will have disappeared. With this idea, nationalism, egoisms, that here in Russia, short term, you might have, as a non-Euro group member, even benefit from the present crisis. But if this crisis develops into disaster, then also the non-members will be severely hurt. We shouldn't forget that. Can we get out of this crisis? Yes, there is courageous leadership. I think the most needed resource in Europe nowadays, but hard to find. We still discuss the crisis mostly in financial terms. But I think as long as we are sticking to the financial discourse, there won't be enough. Our people, and I'm talking now about the members of the Euro group, all our people still think there is a way back. And many citizens in the crisis-ridden economies in the Mediterranean and in Ireland are fed up with the austerity policy, which they think is imposed on them. They are in a state of despair. And in the net contributor countries in the north, they are in a state of rejection. This will lead us into disaster if we continue on these two different tracks. I think we have to go to the very fundamentals. And I think there is a possibility of a quick protocol to overcome and set the crisis. But only if our leaders will have courage, we can make it. It's obvious. Only if we move into a fiscal union, the euro will survive. Without a fiscal union, how should it survive? The Greeks won't have 10 years of depression without going crazy. Everybody will do that, including myself. And on the other side, I don't know how long net contributors, Germany, Finland, wherever, will be ready to invest in the future of the Mediterranean member states. And how long the pressure of the markets could be pushed back and everything will fall apart without a fiscal union. So a fiscal union means a political union. There is no other way. Or you have to pay the extraordinary high price for unraveling of the euro group. And allow me now to confess, I'm pretty optimistic. If I analyze very carefully how the EU developed since 2009, things happened I thought it would never happen during my life. At the beginning, in Germany, there was the sacred no bailout clause in the Maastricht Treaty. Our constitutional core seemed to be more powerful than our elected government. And then, one day in 2009, I will never forget that, was a Thursday discussion in our parliament. Angela Merkel presented the small bailout package, the first one. There was a big unrest in the coalition, conservatives, business-friendly liberals, and the chancellor cooled them down by saying, that's it. In the afternoon, she traveled a lot of applause for this. Nobody in the German delegation was thinking any longer about our constitutional court. By the way, in fact, the constitutional court accepted that in another decision later on. And suddenly, they created a huge rescue plan. Why was that? Because they looked into the dark and cold habits of the Saxons. So they made a tremendous judgment. And nowadays, in the Eurozone, is that any longer a national issue? Or is the Euro group of heads of state and government, did the group of heads of state and government not develop in the direction of a de facto European government? What we see is that the European institutions are redefined. The Commission is de facto playing the role of the administration of these new formed European government called heads of states and government in the Eurozone. The Parliament, the European Parliament, is sidelined, unfortunately. But the national parliaments are the real decision makers. Why is that so? Because they are the caretakers of budgetarians and vanity. So what we see is the emergence of a new structure in the Euro. We see that a de facto European government formed by the heads of states, the members of the Euro, are acting together, not in a formal way, which is a very dangerous shortcoming, because it seems that Germany is dominating everything. It's hard-based and not rule-based. This must be changed as soon as possible in the interest of the whole project. But the direction, I think, is very important. And the same with the national governments. Suddenly the national governments have a European role in a very direct way. And I think about what would have happened if there would have been a sort of Euro chamber and Greek parliamentarians, German parliamentarians, Spanish parliamentarians, Finnish parliamentarians, all representatives of national parliaments would have discussed the crisis directly with each other. I think this would have made an important difference. So what we can learn out of these developments is that we can see the elements of a federation of the federal structure called Europe. I'm talking only about the Europe, ladies and gentlemen. Have emerged. Unfortunately, the leaders everywhere, starting with my own country, have not the courage to develop based on these experiences, this real development, a new vision. And what we need is this new vision. And I think citizens, there will be a lot of rejection. Citizens are open for such a vision. It's not about to explain how much we have to pay for this and that. That's important. But only a vision is oriented to perception. Political challenge. And let me be also quite frank. If the Euro should survive, I think North and South have to reach a new agreement. There will not be a survival of the Euro without a transfer union. Everybody who is telling his audience in rich countries that transfers are taboo is dishonest or will destroy. Sorry. That was my message. And the future will need also that the deficits will at least partly be guaranteed with the euro. Now I'm total frank, investors don't be shocked. I mean, that's how I feel. And the representative of the German embassy. It has since a long time ago started. There is, the story of Alibaba. This word, and then the treasury opens. There is such a word now for a negative treasury. It's called sarcasm. It's very simple. There is no way back without bringing yourself. But we can't stay where we are. The target is nothing mysterious. Maybe it can be explained what the target 2 mechanism in the European Central Bank means. As long as the euro exists and the European Central Bank exists, it's only about economy. But at the moment, if it will fall apart, then the net contributors at the top, Germany, but also Finland and some others, they can't get their money back. It's very simple. So it all has started. We are in a transfer situation. The European Central Bank is buying on the secondary market assets from the Mediterranean countries. Otherwise, the interest rates would have skyrocketed in the past. The question is, when will we be ready to draw the consequences out of the inflow? So my assessment, ladies and gentlemen, and therefore I'm optimistic, is that it's not really understood what unraveling of the euro would mean, even for the richest members of the euro. It's easy to make an omelet out of eggs, but it's a hell of a challenge to make eggs out of an omelet again. And this is the very reason for my optimism. But we can't go on in the way as I said. We will have transfer. We will have, I don't know what my government is, so it has to accept that as a transfer mechanism and as a common guarantee of the debts, euro bonds. I think that's the best instrument to achieve these goals. I think direct payments are much more complicated in the political sphere. But on the other side, to the crisis countries, it's also obvious that a combination of structural reforms is needed. This must be the quid pro quo, that stability is transfer-based and transfer is stability. But for that, we need also the courage to make a two-step ahead. Into a currency union, step 1, step 2, into the full. I don't see a serious alternative to that beyond disaster. So, the way ahead won't be easy. The visit of President Hollande is mentioned. It will be all about growth. Both sides needed it. I don't understand why we are not losing our strengths in the 21st century. people are living today on Earth now was born 2.5, 3 to 4 years ago. That's a completely different world. It will be in the future. Your world will be very different. Sustainability is not any longer a question of ideology. China will be the first economy which will be forced into green revolution. They don't have an alternative to that. And Europe is well positioned. We must invest more. And sorry to say so, I see an important difference between investments, debt-based, and debt which is consumed today. Investments are urgently needed. And we have assets there compared to other regions in the world. We are well positioned. Nobody can stop the Europeans to integrate their energy policy. Yeah, some are pro-nuclear, others are against nuclear, but we can live with that. We should push forward with the ideas we have in common. A European-wide energy policy, common energy policy. No one can stop us. It's only us. We can move into a knowledge-based society. I think 10 or 12 years ago, the EU developed a great idea and formulated it very precisely, the so-called Lisbon agenda. The only shortcoming was it was not binding, and nothing what is binding is really working in the field. But the idea to invest into the future, also for a knowledge-based economy, and be the most modern knowledge-based economy in the world, together with the integrated low-carbon energy policy, offers two ideas where the Europeans can move ahead together. Our relation to our southern neighborhood, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, based on energy cooperation with renewable energy, is another element, and so on. So, there is not a shortage of ideas. There is not a shortage of opinions, alternatives. We shouldn't buy these theses that Europe is old. China is much older. Look what? Our Chinese friends are demonstrating that the age is not the problem. The question is whether you are old here in your mindset. Now, Chinese friends are a perfect example. We can do it. The goal is not. And if we draw political consequences out of this crisis, and it means fiscal union, political union, for the European, for the Euro group, and whoever wants to join should join. This is not an exclusive group. This is an exclusive group. So, this crisis, ladies and gentlemen, offers a huge opportunity for Europe. It will be a hell of it will be bumpy. There will be a lot of noise, shouting, setbacks, but that's more than politics. But don't forget what your grandparents, my parents, your great-grandparents, my grandparents had to go through. And we should understand that the common Europe is also the best guarantor for peace. And we will take care for our interests. Our Asian friends, why should they? They haven't forgotten what the Europeans did in the colonial area. Why should they? They have a We will not lose interest in Europe, but we will move out of their focus. So who will take care of our European interests? Our old-fashioned national states. We never fed them. Pushing child tried last time through the European crisis down in the south, through the country. And his message was quite clear. We are ready to help, but pay that condition. It's not a good deal from the European point. Only Viktor Orban was thrilled about that offer. That's it. It's not a good perspective, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, all we need is a strong Europe. We know how it will look like. We know that it's seriously complicated to push that through, but that's the alternative, and at the end, disaster is not an option, but it's a real human threat. Therefore, I'm an optimist. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for this fascinating, sharp analysis of the Europe's past and present, and for very bold predictions about the Europe's future. Thank you very much. And now the floor is open for questions and answers. And there's one mic available. And please, who is going to start? Who is the first? Okay? Yeah. I will give priority to the students, with your permission. Please introduce yourself, okay?
Well, my name is Miloš. Hello. I have a question considering crisis. Can we ask students, normal people, do something to stop crisis, or do we need to trust or believe that worldwide economists will do this for us?
Well, I don't think this is an alternative.
Do you want to answer the question one by one?
It's not the alternative. I think everybody has to play its role. And this is a very complicated crisis where you have to act on different levels. Actions are short-term actions, long-term actions, long-term consequences, or intended long-term actions where you don't know how this at the end will play out. I try to explain that, how the crisis developed and how we can predict the next steps, growth and after growth, inflation and after inflation. I think it will be another challenge. But for the Europeans, it will be key. And there, I think, all levels are needed, especially for the Eurozone members. Make quite clear whether they want to defend the euro. If not, we are moving into disaster. If yes, then we have to draw the consequences, and these consequences will move into political integration. I see no other way, and to bring that to an acceptance is a challenge for every citizen. It's not only the challenge for leading politicians, elected politicians, or experts. This is a question for the citizens, because they will suffer at the end if the wrong consequences will be brought.
Thank you very much. Next question. Yes.
Hello, sir. My name is Yulong Zhang, and I come from China. And I'm interested in the Greece. And do you think Greece will leave? Do you think Greece will leave Eurozone? And the second question is, what future influence on Europe? Okay, thanks.
In Germany, allow me to rely mostly on my home base. But I think it's the same in other northern countries. The overall emotional reaction is they should come. And it's, when you have a problem, the easiest way out is disappear. It's a very childish reaction, by the way. When a child is some fear of something or anything. And that's exactly what I sense now, also in the political debate in my country. Because Greece will not disappear. Even outside of the European Union, the question of default with states is that they don't disappear. Companies which is going into default and not protected in that state will disappear. And that's it. States don't disappear. The next morning the sun will rise. They are there, still there, with their interests, their problems, everything.
Thank you.
Greece? No. Greece was a factor of stability in a European region which is inherently stable. Do we seriously believe that it is a wise idea to let Greece down and move into a failed state? What would be the consequence in that region? Which is a very sensitive region. And no question about that's Europe. We can have a dispute about whether Turkey or not. But the Balkans become disputed. This is Europe and will have serious consequences. Now we are seriously believe the failed state Greece will be cheaper, quote unquote, for Europe. Very seriously think that. And what will that mean for the stability of the Balkans and enlargement? If Greece will go down that terrible road. I think we cannot stop only by financial calculation. At least the former foreign minister I can't stop, and I experienced the crisis in the Balkans from the very beginning. So I think it's not easy with Greece, especially after the grim outlook for new elections, and but the Europeans should try everything to keep them on board. That's my position.
Thank you. Some more questions and or comments? Yeah, Professor Kohl.
Thank you. You are the German man of state. If you were Greek, would you accept the austerity measures being imposed by the outsiders for Greece? You are German. If you were Polish, would you consider it to be reasonable, presuming that we meet Maastricht criteria next year, that under the circumstances we would apply to Eurozone next year or in 2014? Third, you are German. In a year and a half time, there will be the SPD-led government in Germany. How the SPD coalition policy will be different from CDU-led policy? Thank you.
Well, first question.
Okay, go ahead, please.
First question. It's a tricky thing with the impose, because it's obvious. What I would have done from the very beginning in a different the other side, it's quite clear that we will with you. So also a gesture of solidarity. Secondly, I don't understand why it needed the election of Hollande to talk about an attitude in the direction of growth, because it's obvious. It never heard that out of such a deep crisis, only with tightening the belt you can get out. You need some growth for that. Otherwise, you are in a negative spiral. You are in an austerity spiral. You can't sink yourself out of such a spiral. You need growth for that. And I never understood why this was not seen as a coin, two sides of the same coin. But this might change now very likely, unfortunately. To the second question, whether you, of course you would not, you will sit and wait. I think don't have to be a genius to predict that. You will keep your options, definitely, and if the things will move in the positive direction, then you will make your final decision. And thirdly, well, I don't know what will be the outcome of the next election. And especially, I don't know which role Europe and the European crisis will play. Therefore, I can't give you an answer. Because, this might be a day-to-day change, not only on the technical level, but on the strategic level. And in an election year with the conservatives in a certain decline and weakness in Germany, you never know what will happen. Therefore, hope for the best. And don't be astonished if less than the best will happen.
Thank you. We still have time for at least one question. Go ahead, please.
Hello. Well, you're proposing...
Introduce yourself, my dear.
My name is Marusha Nikislen, and I'm from Sweden, but I study here. And you are proposing a further integration, political and fiscal integration of the European Union. First of all, can we maintain our national sovereignty somehow, or is that supposed to sacrifice this in the common good? And second, will common citizens, as myself, still have a voice in this huge bureaucracy that will also be created when we integrate into the European Union? Thank you.
The huge bureaucracy. Do you know that the bureaucracy of the city of Munich, by the way, the wonderful city, is bigger than the whole of the EU bureaucracy? What are we talking about?
That's the information to me.
And do you know that many of the so-called bureaucratic compromises are based on different nationalities? So the Swedish Prime Minister is sitting in the continent telling his European colleagues, it will never happen. My architecture, my Swedes don't understand. Then the Belgians will rise and say, never, ever. The Belgians don't understand. Then the Polish Prime Minister will rise and say, you're all mad, it's not going to happen. roles of the national parliaments to the decision-making process. Because the national parliaments are those who are directly elected by the citizens of the nation. And they have to make the decision, yes or no. And my proposal is, give them the European role, not only in this crisis, give them the European role where national interests are touched. And of course, if you move into political integration, it needs a referendum in all those member states who intend to make that step. It's not good without that. So I hope I could a little bit moderate your concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I hope your concerns were moderated. Okay, yes, please. Could you take one more?
Yes, one.
Hello, I'm Leona Koźmińskiego. I'm a postgraduate student of this academy, and today I'm for Leona Koźmińskiego. It's Green News, it's a magazine of Polish Greens. I would like to ask you a question about François Hollande, who is the new president of France, and two questions about it. Do you think that the fact that there are socialists coming back to power in France will influence on the way that European Union will follow and the road that it will follow? And the second question, the first person that François Hollande has met was Jean-Claude Juncker, the president of Eurogroup. How do you imagine was the two men said to each other?
I have no idea. Well, from my point of view, yes, it will change. Definitely. Hollande will be more growth-oriented. But you will have to deal also with serious problems in France. Shouldn't forget that. Ladies and gentlemen, forget one thing. Forget politicians who promise you that 1 + 1 makes 3. 1 + 1 makes 2. It's boring, I know. It's a matter of fact. And everybody who promises you 1 + 1 makes 3. Wants to sell you a lie and wants to vote. And there are some facts which are neither left nor right. And if you have a deficit which is ballooning, you have a problem. The Schröder government went through the harshest welfare state reform. Why did we do that? We were not elected for such a harsh reform. And it was definitely no fun for a social democrat or a Green member of the government to do that. But what we experienced, that year by year, unemployment was rising. With every additional 100,000 unemployed, 1 billion euro again on the state debt. We had the problems of unification. We had the structural unemployment rate which was increasing. Competitiveness was decreasing. So we knew perfectly well either we have the courage to act, and with the great risk that we will lose power, we lost it, but we'll do it for the sake of the future of our country. Or we will continue and hope that we can get over election day and then maybe or so on. So you have to make hard choices. And you, Hollande, I understand why they were also happy. I was never happy as long as I was elected into government in election night. I always ask myself, why are they so happy? They are going out into a torture chamber, smiling, jubilee, whatever. And there the hangman is waiting with the heat of the coals and irons and you think what's going on to have to do in our country or all the others. Look to the pictures. Look how beautiful they are at the beginning of their term and how great they look after the first year. So from my point of view, he will have a very tough ride ahead. But it's also a great opportunity. New challenge. Germany and France need each other. Nothing constructive can happen in the EU if they lost each other. So it won't be easy. I think for Angela Merkel it will be also a tough ride. Next year we will have elections, so a lot of uncertainties around. But I'm sure France and Germany need each other, and they can't change very much. That was my experience. Schröder and Chirac were not friends for 3 years. It was really tough to bring them together. But there was no, I mean, the space maneuver for French president or German chancellor in the Franco-German relationship is so small. You can't do that. So at the end, at very, very near end, they will come to terms and move ahead.
No, it's done. Thank you very much. And I want to tell you that we are going, with your permission, to publish the proceedings of your lecture, also including some parts of discussion in our journal, Master of Business Administration. And now, let's give our guest a big hand.
Very